Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongeese.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Jake Rowe, I know that Blue Chick Hound's a better hunting dog than a white English Bulldog, but Kirby was right. These dogs hunted tonight, man. What a win.
Yeah, they bit early. They bit hard. You just can't say enough about a team that overcomes kind of getting just blasted with a big mistake of their own doing on the opening drive, especially when Georgia kind of had it going. But you hold Tennessee to a field goal. Stetson Bennett keeps one of Georgia's other ugly issues from rearing its head, red zone woes, with a 13-yard touchdown run. And I was just writing as we came on, Wes. It gave this crowd a jolt that I'm not sure it needed, but it got it, and Georgia benefited from it because this place just took it to another level when Georgia took the lead. And I don't know if I've ever kind of witnessed the crowd quite like this one at Sanford Stadium.
I can remember a game a few years ago when it really rained and fans had a reason to stay. Clearly not that 2015 Alabama game, but the Arizona State game, I think it was 2009 maybe.
Yeah.
And seeing everyone in their ponchos tonight was reminiscent of that for me. But obviously this win right here is way bigger than that one. It was billed as the best matchup, the game of the century. I think the rain maybe slowed things down a little bit on Georgia's offensive end. They got a little predictable just trying to run the clock out at the end of this one, had some penalties, turnovers, and all that stuff. But when Georgia really needed to run what it wanted to run, it really executed most of the time, even punting.
Yeah, I think what you saw there is you saw Kirby Smart gain confidence as the game went on in their plan for Tennessee. Because Tennessee, listen, they scored a touchdown. They hit some plays, and they didn't get 300 yards of total offense. But Tennessee, you felt that the chances were going to be there, and they had some deep chances. They just couldn't connect on them. Georgia did a phenomenal job, 7 sacks. But I think that rain, Georgia kind of went into a show. I think right or wrong, good or bad, whatever you think about Kirby Smart, I think that rain starting like it did, all Kirby could think about was making the critical error because he felt so good, I feel like, about his defense. He was going to make Tennessee have to really earn it. They did make them earn it. Every time they're in the second half, every yard, Georgia was right there. And that was a big part of this game. And, I thought Georgia had it maybe put away a little earlier. It didn't. But, obviously Georgia kind of kept it on his loop and controlled the game. And, going into a shell offensively didn't come back to hurt them.
Welcome, everyone watching our recap, instant thoughts on Georgia's huge 27-13 win over Tennessee. Jake, you wrote earlier in the week, and we spoke about this, about how interested you were to see this Kirby Smart team in the grand scheme of Georgia's really their place on the national stage. They won the national championship, but with Tennessee coming in with all the hype that the Vols had, to have this showing, I know it's right after the game, but what do you think about what this win means for Kirby Smart and for the Dogs?
Yeah, I said my exact kind of premise earlier this week was how many times over that Nick Saban era, and I'm not saying Georgia's going to turn into what Alabama did and what Alabama accomplished. That's extremely tough, if not improbable, to do. But I said that there were so many times Alabama would come up against the hot shot, the team that was on the rise, the hot new team, and that was Tennessee. And Tennessee had deserved that. They worked their way to that. I heard these overrated chants. I'm like, Tennessee's good, man. It's a good football team that Georgia just beat. And Georgia kind of did what Alabama did to a lot of those teams. It just kind of threw water on the fire and kind of asserted itself. And the way Georgia did it its way. Here in Sanford Stadium tonight, they put up 24 points in the first half, but then they came out in the second half. There was a pouring rain, and Georgia went conservative and just kind of suffocated them, and that's the way it ended.
I think as far as the stakes went, how good the team was coming in, and the way the game went, it felt a little bit like that Arkansas game last year. Tennessee gets a little bit more on the board, but Georgia gets out to an early dominant lead and really doesn't have to do much else. But they still did it anyway. They sacked Hendon Hooker. I need to go back and check the actual number. I've seen 6 sacks. I've seen 7. I saw there was a little bit of a question in whether or not.
Let's look at Georgia's official stats here real quick. They've got Georgia for 6.
Okay, I think there was one late hit there late in the game.
Yeah, I think they may not. I think they may have not have gotten credit for one on the face mask. But,
Right.
Yeah.
Regardless of that, I mean, you look at the false start penalties that Tennessee had, 7 or 8. Need to go back and check that one too. But regardless, that's a lot. And Georgia's home crowd was amazing, sticking it out in the rain like we mentioned. Now, when you look ahead for Georgia, this is a win that fans are going to love for a while. But this tough stretch of the schedule isn't done because we've seen how tough it can be to win on the road in the SEC.
Yeah, for sure. And, Georgia sustained some injuries tonight. I don't think that can be overlooked. Michael Williams came back. Jamon Dumas-Johnson came back. That's good. The bad is Robert Beal did not. And, Georgia gutted it out without him, but they're thin at outside linebacker right now. And, they've lost, depending on what, Kirby Smart says about Robert Beal, they may have to go to Mississippi State without 2 of their most productive pass rushers career-wise. And that's not something that is a recipe for success. But I'm sure this team knows what's on the line from here on out. They've got a chance to finish undefeated for a second straight regular season, and maybe put themselves in a position where you can't really leave them out of the college football playoff, win or lose, in the SEC championship game, a la last year.
Yeah, that was kind of the sentiment coming in, was that Georgia needed to win this game more than Tennessee did. I think if you just look at the scoreboard, you might feel like Tennessee kept it close, but anyone who watches this game knows that Georgia really physically dominated the Vols tonight.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, I think the home crowd and the environment had a lot to do with it. I mean, listen, the college football playoff did Georgia a favor. I'm not saying it's gimmicks or smoke and mirrors. Georgia was the faster, more physically dominant football team in the field today, and there's no doubt about it. And out-coached Tennessee too. Okay, just flat out out-coached them. But when you have the number 1 ranked team coming into your stadium, and guys like Eric Ames throwing fuel on the fire,
yeah,
you're gonna run into the bee's nest that they ran into tonight.
Yeah, there's no one that tweaks that bulletin board material better than Kirby Smart's staff, but they'll never admit it. Some really good bulletin board material that you can wear on your shirt is Breaking Tea. Bennett Bowers, 22. Bowers didn't have a huge game tonight, but he was still a load for the Vols. Bennett with a very strong performance against the Vols. A couple touchdown tosses, carried one as well, as you see the mailman here. Check out Breaking Tea for your next Georgia T-shirt and apparel purchase. There's a link to the shop in this episode description. Jake, I want to get you for one more thing here before you hop off. We got a lot of comments, and I'm going to keep going, I think, for the next few minutes as people hop in here. As far as Tennessee moving forward, do you think – you said that the committee gave Georgia a favor by putting them at number 3 with the bulletin board material and that whole aspect there. Do you think that Tennessee being number 1 in these initial rankings still gives the Vols a chance, a threat at making the college football playoff, even without a lot of chaos?
I think it's possible, but it's going to be really tough now because if you think about this, right? Let's say Georgia goes undefeated, Alabama beats LSU tonight, and Ole Miss next week and kind of gets in there. Well, then you're looking at a situation like last year where, Georgia loses to Alabama, and that's the only loss. But then Tennessee's sitting there, and Tennessee's like, do we get in over Georgia? Georgia beat you, so that's kind of a tough situation for them to deal with. It's not impossible. Tennessee's rooting for Georgia to win out in the SEC championship game. Maybe get a little bit of chaos and slip in as that second SEC team.
Jake, we have a $1 deal for 1 year over at DawgsHQ.com for some premium content.
Wes, this place was full of recruits tonight.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what those guys thought of it, but I'm sure you're going to want to be reading it. And Jeremy Johnson and Chad Simmons and Jake Roos will have you covered. If you like recruiting, you're going to want to be at DawgsHQ.
And you have some recurring premium stories every Sunday too. What do you have coming up tomorrow?
Well, I don't have any premium stuff, I don't think, coming up tomorrow. But starting on Monday, we'll jump into Mississippi State a little bit with Media Day. And then early next week, I'll break this game down, and I'll have some of the things that Georgia did to give Tennessee the fits that it did and win this game. And I'm excited to get another look at it because I feel like there's so much you miss when you watch it up here.
There's one play that I want to circle for you. I believe it was in the second or third quarter. I don't remember at this point. There was a Ladd McConkey catch out on the perimeter. And I think it was Broderick Jones just decleated a Tennessee player. And I saw the bottom of some Tennessee orange cleats, and I'm interested to see the replay of that one. That one really sticks out to me in real time here. But
I'm sure there were several decleaters in that game.
I bet. Congrats on a good game. From your standpoint in the press box, what an amazing night in Athens and in Sanford Stadium. We'll catch you tomorrow night, 8:30 p.m. right here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Thanks, Jake.
Got it.
Guys, I'm going to hang on here for a couple more minutes. I see that we've got some comments here. I know y'all want to have your voices heard. Uncle Glenn Hartley, baby. The fun uncle. Kirby, Muschamp, and Schumann are defense geniuses. Yeah, they look pretty smart tonight. I go back to two big red zone possessions by Tennessee. One was in the first half, and you talk about the crowd noise. There was a 3rd and 2, and Tennessee had back-to-back false start penalties, and they had to settle for a field goal. I mean, that's a huge moment of momentum just being flipped on its head right there, and the Georgia crowd did everything you could want it to do. It wasn't raining at that point, but the Dogs had a poncho party. They didn't quiet down just because some rain started to fall, and I'm still getting texts from my buddies that are at Sanford, and no one wants to leave, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them one bit. Andy, the Dogs dominated Tennessee. That was as impressive as the Michigan beatdown. I think the fact that Tennessee was still lingering late in the game, kind of a threat, makes it a little less dominant than Michigan. That Michigan game is hard to top, in all fairness. The Dogs really took it to the Wolverines. Luckily, they had 2 entrances to the field, so they didn't have to worry about any shenanigans against Michigan there. But this game was dominant. They punished Hendon Hooker. There was one drive in the third quarter where Georgia had the ball for about 8 minutes. I know they only kicked a field goal, but the word that comes to mind to me when I think about this win for Georgia is punishing. They punished the Vols, and that's something that Kirby Smart brought to Athens. That's a comment that he had in one of Georgia's early games. I believe it was the 2017 team. That was a mentality that the defense had, and I know Georgia had a lot of defensive injuries tonight, but this team is punishing as well. And they're young, they're inexperienced at certain positions, but look at Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter has all the experience you could want as well, and he's leading this team. That pressure started up the middle for Georgia tonight. Now, I also want to highlight Javon Bullard. Javon Bullard, number 22, I thought he could have a big game, and he had a couple sacks himself coming off the edge. So that was impressive. Georgia brought everything that they could. I really feel like Georgia did notice that Tennessee was going to be a threat when they played in Knoxville last season, and they saw how much trouble the offense gave them back then. And I think Kirby Smart, this isn't any inside information. It's just knowing what I know about Kirby Smart by now. I really have to believe he spent a lot of time this offseason when he wasn't having to figure out NIL and transfer portal stuff, which, by the way, as he said on the CBS postgame show, or his postgame interview walking off the field, he's proud of the team. They're elite, and he didn't have to take anybody out of the portal to do it. Now, maybe he's wishing at this point that he did have a few more players out of the portal, just given Georgia's defensive depth issues. But what a statement. What a statement for the Dogs. Will Crawl. Go Dogs. Big win. That's right, Will. Uncle Glenn is pouring one out for Eric Ainge right now. And I'll give credit where credit's due, because Eric Ainge did beat Georgia when he was a player. But his comments, this tweet, what are you doing, man? You are kicking the hornet's nest. It's not what you need to do, because this is a different atmosphere. It's a different environment. I don't know if Kirby Smart will need to send another tweet to tell his fans to be loud. I think he just has to point to that scoreboard from tonight, 27-14, and remind them, 27-13. Just remind them, look at what y'all did. Brett Thorson and the crowd teamed up. My man Drew Butler calls him the milkman because he used to be a cattle farmer when he was in Australia, mate. And he had that huge punt down to the 1. Sets up that iffy, could have been a safety. I'm not sure why it wasn't. But right after that, Georgia wins the field position battle. Next play, Stetson Bennett to Lad McConkey. Stetson Bennett, Staquavius with the fade. He got his haircut again, and Staquavius is back. Red Patriot, they're not in here. Asking where the Vol Trash Talk is. They joined our Wednesday show, a few of them. They were kind enough to bring some comments and bring some conversation. Some of them were kind, some of them were not. Jamal Patman. Yep. Eric Ainge. I don't know if Tennessee's going to cry. And I know that y'all want to – I know that Georgia fans want to think that Tennessee fans are going to cry about this one. I think that they're just going to take their humble pie and probably just not talk very much. But I'll say, if you look at the grand scheme of where Tennessee was last year, the year before that, I think they're happy with how the season's going. Now, did they get a little too much hype a little too quickly? Probably so. And I think that moment was probably a little too big for them. But if they make it back into the college football playoff, I'll say this. Tennessee didn't quit. Defense didn't quit. I know Georgia got predictable running the ball once the rain started to come down. But Tennessee's physical. They're tough. They just don't necessarily have the depth, I think, that you need to be as elite as Georgia is. And by the way, Georgia distinguishes itself today as the class of the SEC. Nick Saban still has his legacy. He still has all the championships. But all of these coaching rankings, these arbitrary, asinine things, it's all about what have you done for me lately. And Georgia is impossible to beat at home. Good luck, Georgia Tech. They've gotten better as the season's gone along. Lad McConkey has come on the last couple games, couple touchdowns after he had a shaky start to the season. People were piling on him. I mean, this is an important moment in this Georgia season, and I don't know what will happen from here. The injury situation is tough, and going on the road against that Mississippi State offense with the banged-up defense, you got to hope that some of these dogs can get healthy. Same thing against Kentucky. Say what you will. It's tough to go on the road and win the SEC. I don't have to say anything else than that. Let's see. 22 was stupid tonight. Bullard that boy. Yes. Tennessee defense not good, Wing Rider. Butt kicking. Yeah. Tennessee is not 2019 LSU. I think we can all agree on that. Uncle Glenn Hartley is going to call Brett Thorson the bomb. And how about them champs? I almost said how about them dogs, but how about them champs from Big A50? I don't know if you are a police officer. If so, thank you for what you do in our communities. Or maybe you're just 50 years old and your name's Big A, Big Al. I don't know. Y'all have any other questions, any other comments? I don't want to keep talking. Y'all enjoy this win, man. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel if you don't already. Hit follow if you're listening to this on a podcast replay. We got it all for you. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, if you want to watch us. We'll be back Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll be back this week, Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time as well, to recap what's going on with Georgia as they prepare for Mississippi State. One more thing I want to say is, look, I know Vince Dooley passed away before the Florida game. He was a tremendous story coming out of that game, and people got to share some of their memories about him. But this was Georgia's first home game since Coach Dooley passed, and they played on Dooley Field, and that field will bear his name for the rest of time as long as that stadium is still standing up. And I got to tell you, man, I just felt like coming into this one, it was going to be extra tough to beat the Dogs. And I think Coach Dooley's presence was certainly felt tonight. A lot of Georgia fans paying tribute to him. The team did as well. And I know Coach Kirby Smart is thinking about one of his mentors as well. How about them Dogs, man? Big win. Just got to hunker it down a few more times. Thank y'all for joining us. As always, we can't do it without you. We love engaging with you. We love interacting with you. And we're happy that you're a part of DawgsHQ. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.